Welcome, one and all. This is the Ancient Journey. On today's journey, buried alive, Barbara Jane Mackle. Before we get started, don't forget, if you enjoy our content, hit that like button, share the video, and subscribe. Now let's get started. The Hong Kong flu is sweeping the United States in 1968, and Barbara Jane Mackle has come down with it. Barbara is a college student at Atlanta's Emory University and is away from home and feeling quite ill. The stress of her fall semester finals didn't help. The college's infirmary is full, so Barbara's mother Jane books a room at a hotel nearby campus so that Barbara has a place to recover. Who knows, if she's well enough, perhaps Jane can take Barbara home for Christmas. It's December 17th, 1968. Jane and Barbara are sound asleep in their hotel room at 3 a.m. when a loud knock comes at the door. As Jane opens the door, two police officers greet her. They announce they're there because of a car accident and wish to ask the two some questions. As soon as Jane begins to open the door, the police officers force their way into the room, and Jane Mackle is chloroformed. Barbara is taken away from the room by the fake police officers and forced into a running car outside. Jane Mackle later awakens from her chloroform-induced slumber to find her mouth taped over and her hands and feet tied up. She struggles to her feet and makes it to the parking lot where motel employees notice her. She makes it to a phone and contacts the police. While Jane is struggling to get her wits about her, daughter Barbara is enduring a far worse fate. The two kidnappers who have taken her keep threatening to chloroform her, but Barbara is so sick and congested that she tells them chloroforming her might kill her. The kidnappers take her to a wooded location, chloroform her anyway, and place her in a wooden box in the ground. The box contains a light, some food, a blanket, a sweater, a fan, and water that has been laced with sedatives. Two hoses are connected to the box for air intake. The kidnappers take a photo of Barbara holding a sign that reads, "Kidnapped." The box is sealed, then covered in 18 inches of dirt. Barbara Mackle has been buried alive. As Barbara contemplates her fate, her father, Robert, immediately flies to Atlanta. Robert is a wealthy businessman. He is also friends with then President-elect Richard Nixon. Nixon has been advised of the situation and has asked FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover to direct the investigation into Barbara's disappearance. Before long, a ransom demand is issued to Robert Mackle for the return of his daughter. A demand of $500,000 is made, nearly $4 million in today's money. The Mackles make an attempt to deliver the money to the kidnappers. The first attempt is disrupted when policemen drive by the scene of the drop. The kidnappers flee the scene on foot, leaving a car behind. Inside the car, the FBI finds photos of a man wearing a policeman's uniform and documents showing the car is registered to someone named George Deacon. The kidnappers make arrangements for a second ransom drop, but then there is no word from them. They have taken the money and vanished with no word of where Barbara may be. During this time, the FBI has been tracking down who George Deacon is. As it turns out, George Deacon is a Florida man who builds ventilated boxes for a living. Deacon's boss provides the name of Ruth Eisman Shear to the FBI, a woman that Deacon spends a lot of time with. The FBI is then contacted by a Georgia man who had recently purchased a small trailer. The trailer contained letters addressed to George Deacon and someone named Gary Christ. Gary Christ turns out to be an escaped prisoner from a California jail. And when the FBI compares fingerprints found in the kidnapper's car to those in Christ's prison file, they realize that George Deacon and Gary Christ are the same person. On December 20th, a switchboard operator for the FBI receives directions to Mackle's burial location. More than 100 agents spread out through the location given to find her. She is found and rescued, dehydrated, but otherwise unharmed. She had been buried alive for 3 days. Gary Christ is arrested shortly after, hiding out in a Florida swamp. He decides to purchase a boat and hide away in the water, but the seller calls police after the sale. Christ has paid for the boat in cash, using nothing but $20 bills. The bulk of the ransom money is found in the boat when Christ is apprehended. His accomplice, Ruth Eisman Shear, is arrested 79 days later in Norman, Oklahoma. Ruth was dressed as a man and was the second fake police officer who kidnapped Barbara. Ruth becomes the first woman ever on the FBI's 10 most wanted list before she is arrested. Ruth serves 7 years in prison and then is deported to her home country of Honduras. Christ is sentenced to life in prison, but receives parole after 10 years. He is granted a pardon to allow him to attend medical school. He later loses his license to practice medicine due to lying. Christ was born in Alaska in 1945 and was the worst sort of criminal, a smart one. Christ had been stalking Barbara Mackle for some time, using nothing more than observation and a public library to learn details about her and her family. Barbara's grave isn't the last hole that Christ will dig. His property in Georgia is raided in 2006, where he is found to have created an extensive underground cocaine processing facility. He would spend another 5 years in prison for it, but still resides in Georgia to this day. Thanks for watching, and thanks for sharing the journey.